Claire has a ton of content for us today, so if we don't have a chance to get to your question, we are going to take all those questions at the end, and Claire is going to answer them individually because she is the best. We are going to be live tweeting this session in addition to recording it. You can follow along at Q Webinar. You can also follow us on at QGIF at Twitter, and then Claire's Twitter account is Charity Clarity. Claire is actually one of the first bloggers I ever started reading in the nonprofit industry. She has a ton of amazing insight into major gifts fundraising, why it's important, and how we can do it well. And so I am absolutely thrilled to turn this over to her and have her give us some of her wisdom. Take it away, Claire.
Thank you. Okay, let me see if I can figure out how to advance the slides here. They're not showing on my screen, Abby.
Oh dear. Okay.
I mean, they're at the bottom of the screen, but they're not at the top.
Can you double click on the first one for me? There you go.
Okay. All right. So thank you, everybody, for being here, and I want to congratulate you for wanting to embrace major gift fundraising more wholeheartedly in the year ahead. Today, we're going to be all about the ask. Ask and ye shall succeed. And the goal of this webinar is to move from thinking of asking as a necessary evil, something that you're going to want to avoid until the last possible minute, to thinking of it as a way to enable your donors to feel the joy of giving. And people really do want to give. Your job is merely to facilitate this. And there have been MRI studies that show that our brain centers light up when we're merely contemplating giving. It gives us a shot of that feel-good dopamine. It gives people a way to change lives and repair the world. And it gives people meaning, a sense of purpose, which is something that human beings are constantly seeking. So fundraising is not the end in and of itself. It's how our shared goals, our organizations and our donors are met. So fundraisers are essentially joyful philanthropy facilitators. Just a little bit more about who I am and why you should listen to me. I've been doing this a while. Since leaving full-time work, overseeing you name it in fundraising for 30 years, including lots of major gifts, from prospect ID to cultivation to solicitation, working for organizations with smaller than $1 million budgets to over $40 million budgets, for annual campaigns, capital campaigns, and endowment campaigns. I went on my own as a consultant 5 years ago. And when I left my last full-time job, my staff told me that I'd been running my own fundraising school. So Clarification was born, and it's my business and it's a blog that is sort of my version of an ongoing online mini fundraising school. So I hope that you will check it out later. I hope you will join by subscribing. And now let's go on to today's meat and potatoes. So passion, prepare, practice, pitch, pay attention, and persist. That's basically how you do the ask. And we're going to cover all of the things on the list on the screen today. I'm not going to read them to you. But again, I'm covering a lot of material today. So if you do have questions we don't get to, type them into the chat box, and I will get to you afterwards. All right. So the webinar is about making your ask. And I'm going to quote hockey great Wayne Gretzky, who said, 100% of the shots I never take don't go in. You can't ever forget that you do have a goal orientation. If you don't ask, you won't get. So you've got to overcome the fear factor first. And people's biggest fears have to do with the attitudes that they bring with them. And they just feel that fundraising is yucky. And this can be addressed by reframing fundraising to adjust people's attitudes from negative to positive, and by helping them get religion before they preach it. People also fear looking stupid, and this can be addressed by setting folks up for success with training and practice. So first, let's look at the difference between an attitude of philanthropy versus fundraising. Philanthropy is all about values. It means love of humankind. My tried and true 3 keys to overcome anxiety have to do with getting people in touch with their values. And these are deceptively simple, but if you can do them, they will take you quite a ways, because they're all about passion. And passion is contagious. And I think I'm on the wrong side. Let me go back to the last one. Okay, so passion is kind of like yawning. If you do it, other people are going to do it too. So you want to get in touch with your personal passion, know your values, inspire yourself. You want to enact your passion by giving, and you want to ask others to join you. So you're never going to get to your passionate major gift ask if you can't overcome people's fear of that nasty old fundraising. I want you to reframe fundraising and the negativity and the fear that are associated with it, because it feels to people like begging, and it means that they have to talk about that taboo subject, money. Reframe it to philanthropy and the joy that's associated with it, because it's connoted with generosity and inspiration and heart fulfillment. Philanthropy is more about gain. It's about freely giving and getting something intangible of value in return, as opposed to being about loss, about taking away from. People will do anything to avoid the perception of loss. So don't let your fundraisers think of fundraising as a loss generator. Get them to understand how it's a gain generator. It facilitates philanthropy, which brings joy. So I really want to get you into this place of positivity rather than negativity, this place of inspiring philanthropy by understanding people's fears and helping them overcome them. Otherwise, when you go into the ask, your prospect is going to know, they're going to be able to tell that you're doing something you don't want to be doing or that you're embarrassed about it. And that's very off-putting. And this really is important stuff. Attitude really does matter. And if you take the emphasis away from soliciting and move it to facilitating, making the folks who share your values feel really good, your askers will relax. So you want to retire the tin cup. Rejection isn't personal. If you ask someone and they say no, they're not turning you down. They're turning down an opportunity to make a difference. You're not begging, you're not taking from, you are asking and offering an investment, a way for people to make a transfer from their financial to their social portfolio. Don't ever apologize. Assume that the person you're talking to cares, because most people do. Good salespeople assume that people are going to buy. They just walked into a sofa store. They want a sofa. So you don't say, do you want a sofa, but which sofa do you want? And that's what you do. You say, which program would you like to invest in? So there's no need to say things like, I'm going to go hit him up, I'm going to go twist her arm. This is not a battle. Giving is something that makes people happy. We have the MRI studies to prove this, which brings me back to the passion tripod, the getting in touch with passion, enacting your passion, and asking others to join you, which is why I like to get folks psyched up. And I don't like to do a training session because that makes it sound like fundraising is so hard you need training to do it. I like to do an inspiring philanthropy workshop where you have folks go around the room and tell the story of why they got involved. Or you bring in someone who was helped to tell their story. And telling these stories reignites people's passion. And it gets these stories to feel fresh and on the tips of their tongue. And then you help your solicitors develop personal pitches. It's not a single elevator speech about your organization that everyone has to memorize, but it's tailored to each asker's personal passion for your organization. And you can literally watch their eyes light up as they tell these stories. So have them talk to you about why giving time, talent, and treasure to you is important to them. Then it's easier for them to suggest why it should be important to their prospect. And if somebody asks them a question they don't know the answer to, that's not a problem. They can always say, let me get back to you on that, and then they can go ask the staff person. Telling their own point of view, why they got involved, why they stay involved, frees people up to be the best ambassadors they can be simply by being themselves. So what's their background and life experience? What values led them here? Coach them to speak directly from those values, from their own story and experiences. People are so scared that they won't have the right wording, the facts that they need, the information on all your programs. They don't need to memorize this. They won't forget their own story. So tease out why it's personal to them. Have they been touched by your issue? Do they know somebody who was? And you can do this at a board meeting where they can inspire themselves while telling the story, but also get inspired by other people's stories, listening to them. You can also do it one-to-one. And you can also do this at staff meetings to get your staff inspired as well. The formula for success is to reframe fundraising for yourself and for others as being about storytelling, getting in touch with your own personal story, your own passion, getting familiar with your organization's stories, and then just learning to tell and share those stories. So storytelling already sounds less threatening than fundraising, doesn't it? There's a lot of ways to bring your organization's stories to life and to help your solicitors tell them. And you can create a lot of different storytelling, story learning, and collecting opportunities, like taking folks out into the field to witness your work in action. I used to take people in a little minivan tour. I worked at a comprehensive social services agency, and we'd go visit our different sites. And we had an adult day health center. And I can remember talking to one board member who did a solicitation the day after she visited that center. And she said for the first time, she felt totally comfortable asking because she knew she was not asking for herself. She was asking for the people that she saw at that center. So you can also bring stories to them by having clients present at meetings. You could send a story every month out to your board members with an insider news or something like that. And I often found that of all the information I sent volunteers, the one thing that they really remembered was the story. You can also have people who do go out into the field. If you send one board member out into the field, have them come back to your board at the next meeting and talk about their experience to others. This models telling stories for everybody. It helps people to start to put their thoughts into a recognizable storytelling format. And you can even sit down with them and say, that story you just told me, let's tell it again, but in a storytelling format. And you can help them. We'll go through that in a minute. This is a really great way to practice asking. And you want to remind your solicitors that people invest in you because you meet needs. All of the needs that are demonstrated in the stories, not because you have needs. And that's really a key because people don't want to feel needy when they ask. They don't want to be beggars. Also, you want to get in touch with your personal stories. So usually in a story, there's a main character with trials to overcome. And there are ways to help them overcome these trials. And then the donor can be the one who comes in to save the day, the hero. And again, one of the best stories is where the asker is the main character. Here's what happened to me. And then they tell the story of how they grew up poor or how their grandmother had no food to feed her family. And that's why they joined the food bank board. Or their daughter broke her hand and was told she would never play music or sports again. And that's why they've joined the board of the hospital that saved her. The testimonial role is often the best role that people can play for you in a donor visit. So once upon a time, this happened to me, or this happened to someone I know. Things got worse, da-da-da-da-da. Then things got better. Here's how. And talk about the services that they received. And then they say there was a happy ending due to donors like you. Being armed with a good story to tell is like having a security blanket going into the app. And then the next step is to get religion, to make your own passionate gift before you ask someone to join you, before preaching to others. And this is a gift at a stretch level, passionate. If board members don't make leadership gifts, then why would anyone else do so? Staff should do this too. All these old adages that we hear, put your money where your mouth is, walk the talk, they exist because they're important. It's, in psychological terms, it's called social proof. People will assume the actions of others in an attempt to reflect correct behavior for a given situation. So there's no substitute for leading by example. It's wonderfully effective when you can say to your prospect, Joe, I've contributed $5,000 to this project myself. I believe it's that important. I'm asking you to join me. When you love something, you share. If you go to a great restaurant, you tell your friends. If you see a great movie, you tell your friends. I often say to nonprofit board members and volunteers, why are you being so stingy? You love this organization. Why aren't you sharing it? People want your recommendation. They want to give. And then you just ask others to join you in your passion. People want to be asked. There's a lot of ego and self-esteem wrapped up in being able to be a philanthropist. Why do you think so many people like to be wined and dined? It plays to their ego. So if you cultivate these people and meet with these people and then fail to ask them, it actually hurts them because they can't enact the values they would love to express more fully. Can't do this on their own. They can't find the meaning they seek, not on their own. They can't experience the joy that comes from giving, not unless you ask them. So you're seriously leaving money on the table. I know of one case where a donor had given small gifts, auction donations, etc., to a school where he was an alum. And one day the ED saw that this donor had made a $10 million gift to another school. And so he met with him and he said, that's really great you did that, but how did you pick that school and why did you never give to us? And the donor said, well, first of all, you never asked. Second, they did. So you really do have to think about asking people. The gifts are just not going to fall from the sky. So now we're ready to get to the anatomy of the ask. And first, you have to get the visit. And this is important because Major Gifts veteran fundraiser Gerald Panis says you're 85% on your way to a gift if you can get your prospect to agree to a visit. He actually says if you want to milk a cow, sit by its side. But how do you get your cow to cooperate? Begin with yourself. Acknowledge getting the visit is really the hard part. There's nothing wrong with you if you're having a hard time getting through to someone. Everyone does. Once you get the person to agree to the visit, the ask is pretty much a piece of cake. So persevere here. Try different channels until you find one that works. Even text and social media, people have different communication preferences. And also remember, you're not setting up an appointment. It's a visit. Appointments are no fun. Doctors and mechanics and dentists require appointments. Visits are fun. You chat, you nosh, you have a lovely conversation. So ask people for a visit and ask them for their advice. Advice is magic. If you've ever heard it said, if you want advice, ask for gifts. If you want gifts, ask for advice. It's true. People love to give advice. And so you tell the prospect why you're contacting them. And this one. Okay. So here's how you do it. You're polite and you're straightforward, and you give them your name and you say, hi, this is Claire, this is Dan. We met at the gala last month, so you're telling them how you know them. And you're personal because people give to people. So you want to avoid the classic mistake of forgetting to say who you are and just launching right into, hello, I'm calling on behalf of the Cancer Center. They asked me to call you. No. Personalize it. Say, we met at the gala. I understand you're a donor, or I understand you're a volunteer. I know you're an important community leader. Thank them for their involvement. And then clarify your role so that they trust you. I'm on the board and just wanted to thank you for attending the gala and for all your support, or thank them for volunteering, or thank them for their time. And then you want to check in. You want to say why you called. Is this a good time to talk? If not, what would be a good time? And then I'd love to get just 20 minutes to run some ideas by you. Maybe get your advice, your feedback on this new project, because I know you've been a supporter for a long time. Plus, I'd really like a few minutes to explore your philanthropic interest. So you don't hide that, but you don't talk about money yet. You're going to save that for the in-person visit. And you want to make it easy for the donor to say yes. So do you have 20 minutes? I promise to keep it to that. And I'll come to you if that's convenient. Give them a couple of options for getting back to you. Say, what's best for you, next Monday or Thursday? Would those work? And if those don't work, ask them if they can give you a couple of times, or if you can connect with their assistant to set up a time for a visit. Okay. So before you're ready to go on the visit, there's a bit of preparation. First, you need to decide on your specific ask. And this is purpose and amount. But before you think through the money, think about the ideas. Think about different things that you could do with a significant investment in different areas that your prospect might be interested in. And you can make a little chart like this, which you can actually even bring to some major donor prospects and say, hey, which of these areas are you most interested in helping us with? Let's brainstorm a few areas where you could really make a significant impact. And often they'll ask, well, what would it cost to do this research project? Or what would it cost to do education and outreach on this topic? How many people could we reach? Would we have to hire additional staff? And together you sort of try to sketch out what the program is so that they feel really like they're a participant in the process. And when you do this, they will almost self-solicit. You'll start to hear them talk about what we could do. Hey, maybe we could do some scholarships that, and then they pretty much join your team. So let's look at one other key to a successful ask, which is who do you involve? First, who's the decision maker on the prospect side? Part of making it more likely to get a yes is having the right decision makers in the room. Should you add a spouse, an adult child, a trusted financial or legal advisor? You are preparing a bit of a dog and pony show, so you may as well have everyone there who needs to see the show. Otherwise, you're counting on the person that you meet with to convey what you said to someone else. And that's a bit like the game of telephone. Something gets lost in the translation. Then, who is the asker from the prospect's perspective? You want the person in the room who the prospect's going to have the hardest time saying no to. You want someone they perceive as important, as authoritative, as credible, and also as friendly. who does the prospect have the best relationship with? Sometimes it's the doctor who performed life-saving surgery. Sometimes it's a former teacher. It could be a board leader. It could be the CEO. If the major gift officer or the director of development built the relationship with the prospect, sometimes you want them to go along. The person who's the hardest to say no to and the person who has the best relationship are often different people. So I like to take 2 people with me, sometimes 3 if it can be arranged. I especially like having a board member in the room. And if they're afraid to be the asker, that's okay. They don't have to, because they can play a powerful, almost magical role in testifying to their own passionate stretch gift. You don't ever want to take anybody on the solicitation who hasn't made a gift. There are 3 basic roles that people will play in the solicitation: educator, advocate, and asker. And there's no hard and fast rules on who should play these roles, and you might play more than one, but you just want to know going in which role you're going to play. So let's look at one model. So you have potentially an educator, and this is a person who is knowledgeable about your program, about the impact that they have. And they may have a relationship to the donor. They may also be an advocate for the program. It could be a physician, a teacher, a program director, a musician, an artist, a researcher. Then you have an operations leader. This is the person that the prospect knows is going to make sure that the program goes forward and is going to steward their investment. And this is usually the CEO or another high-up leader, operations person. And often this person is also the asker. They're also a knowledgeable advocate, and sometimes they'll educate. And then finally, you have the philanthropy leader. And this is often a board volunteer or a staff member who can testify to their own gift, be a passionate advocate, and they also be the asker. Again, know what role you're playing going in, because I've been in solicitations where nobody asked because they thought the other person was supposed to do it, and they didn't want to step on that person's toes. So those are very painful for everyone, your donor included. Now, if you know your role, you can prepare for it. And what you want to do is sit down together as a solicitation team and strategize. Share what you know about the potential donor's giving, about their other history with your organization, and about their interests. And then decide, what's the goal of this visit? Is this like a first date where we're getting to know and we're deciding what they're interested in, or is this the actual specific financial ask? Decide how much and what materials you want to bring with you and who's going to be responsible for them, so you don't get there and go, oh, I thought you were bringing the stuff. Know who is going to start the conversation, and then consider what questions you might ask to draw the prospect out. Questions like, what do you know about our cause? Because if you find out they have a personal connection that you didn't know about, or maybe they're an expert in the field, it's going to radically alter the conversation moving forward. What first got you involved here? What keeps you so passionate about this cause? This question causes your donor to connect with their own values and what's closest to their heart, and it puts them in a frame of mind of wanting to make a difference or wanting to give back. How do you generally make philanthropic decisions? How can we help you? And then you want to practice saying these questions to each other, because it makes sure that you're going to do it and that it feels easy and second nature to you. On the day of the solicitation, reconnoiter with each other 15 minutes beforehand so you can get any chit-chat out of the way, like where you parked, and make sure that you're presenting a united front and that you're walking in really ready to listen and focus on the donor, because the visit is the prospect's time to get their questions answered. and to get really excited about the project. And one more word on the magic of practicing. And I know that says PN instead of plan. There's always going to be a knot in your stomach, at least for 99% of us. The best antidote is pretty simple. Be prepared, be enthusiastic, communicate the urgency of the need, and practice it. Practice really makes perfect. I like to do it 3 times. The first time you do it, you say, oh, that sounds really awkward. I don't like that. I'm going to change that up. The second time, you start to fine-tune it a bit. And by the third time, it starts to flow. And it's a little bit like driving. I mean, remember how unnatural that seemed in the beginning? But now you don't even think of the multitude of decisions you're making as you navigate the roadways. Okay, you're almost ready. Now you want to remind yourself one last time about what your mission really is. It's inviting investment. An invitation is a nice thing. Who doesn't respond positively to being invited to do something nice, to do something they want to do? At least you're pretty sure that they do, or pretty hopeful that they do when you walk into the room. They're going to do something that's going to make them feel good, and this is how you have to frame the solicitation in your mind. So let's look at how you create an opening and a case for support that are inviting. So first you explain the reason that you're there. Now, of course, they already know that, but it helps you to ease into things and to focus on what you want to talk about. And it's really no different than a phone repairman showing up at the door and saying, hi, I'm here because I understand your phone isn't working. You know that, but it's somehow reassuring to know that they're there according to a plan, and they're going to help you. And remember, you're there to help your donor enact their passions and values. So you say something like, hi, Sarah, it's so good to be here with you. I'm Claire. We spoke on the phone about your interest in helping us with our new program. Thank you for agreeing to meet, and thank you for all your previous support and for always being someone we can count on. I am really looking forward to telling you more about what we hope this new program will be able to accomplish. It's a lot like what you helped us with before, but if we can make this happen, we can help a lot more people who wouldn't get helped any other way. And then you walk in, and you spend no more than 5 minutes breaking the ice. Little chit-chat by following up on something that you talked about before, or asking about their children or grandchildren, or asking about a photo or a piece of art that you see in their home. And then you move on, because you don't want to waste their time. And you offer up your case for support. And I suggest coming in with a 1-page front and back case statement that offers a succinct, detailed explanation of why your prospect should seriously consider your request. And it outlines the need, your plan to address it, and how they can help. And it's something you can leave behind so they can think about your request if they need to review it with somebody. It also helps you to think clearly and get to the point. It's really there as a crutch to give you confidence, but it's not the end all. Now is your chance to really make an in-person, passionate proposal. And it's really good, again, to put this in the form of a story. It's the oldest form of human communication. People just listen better to stories. There's plenty of research on this, which we don't have time to go into today. But more and more, the evidence points to the fact that stories are what compel and sell, not facts. So you want to show your prospect how they're going to give a happy ending. And I put up here this screen from Charity Water just because they do a really good job of very quickly showing this is the project, this is how much it costs, and then they show the happy ending. They show the happy faces of these children getting clean water. And, you want to show your donor the benefits of their participation. Now, here are some asking strategies that work and some that don't. I don't want you to say, you probably hate to get this call, but Or, I know this is a bad time and the economy is bad right now, but, or it's that time of year, time for me to hit you up or twist your arm for a donation, or every little bit helps. I do want you to say, I know you've been a strong supporter. Thank you. I know you share my values. I'm curious, what inspired you to be involved here? I really hope you'll invest with me for a positive social return. Philanthropy is a pay-it-forward proposition. It's about the future. It's about assuring your organization's ability to be here for everyone in the community who relies on you. It's about doing what needs to be done to move your mission and your vision forward. When your donor gives, they're not giving to you, they're giving through you to accomplish a valued outcome. Go into the ask with the understanding that people generally want to give when it will enact their values and express their passion. All right, so you've warmed people up, you've presented your case, now what? Ever have a heart-to-heart with your mom or your best friend or with your spouse? A lot of this conversation is about getting the other person talking about their feelings and emotions. So you want to ask open-ended questions, and I'll tell you my favorites in a moment. But when the person cannot answer with a simple yes or no, it generates their own thinking about your issue. It encourages them to ponder your presentation, to really think about it, and to ask questions. And you want to take note whenever their eyes light up, and that's when you want to talk more about that. Conversely, when their eyes glaze over, ask if they have questions about what you just said. Also, and this is important, pay close attention when their enthusiasm seems off the chart, because that might be a sign that you should ask for a larger amount. The ultimate sign that you're in the money, so to speak, is when you hear the donor say, we, not you. So listen for this, because it means that she bought in. She thinks of herself as part of us, and you're no longer an outsider to your donor. Now, my favorite open-ended questions. I actually already went over with you these questions for a cultivation type of visit where you're getting to know what they care about the most. But for the solicitation visit, I like to ask, what are your impressions so far of what I've just discussed with you? Tell me a bit more about what you just said. Why is this your favorite aspect of what we've talked about? These questions uncover people's values by giving the prospect the opportunity to really talk about their interests and begin to feel at ease. You want to listen more than you talk. Don't think of it as a sales pitch. If you've done the cultivation properly, most donors are already sold on making a donation by the time you meet with them. So what you're really doing now is helping them choose which type of investment they're most excited about making. And the only way to do this is to pick up on cues as to what really floats their boat by listening. You have 2 ears and 1 mouth. Use them in that proportion. And you will often be surprised at how often the donor will be the first one to mention making a gift to you. They'll ask, how can I help with that? They'll ask, well, how much is that going to cost? So you want to be prepared to answer those questions, which brings us to your specific ask. So you want to address specifically what their money will be used for. You want to address why you need it now, what's the urgency. And you want to use storytelling to convey how essential their gift is, what the urgency of it is. And your story should really demonstrate what would happen if your nonprofit ceased to exist or the program for which you're seeking funding doesn't come to fruition. Put a face to your story. Show who will suffer or what won't happen. Show who they're going to rescue, who they're going to save. Because if they feel like you're simply asking for money, they can't make a passionate gift. There's no emotion attached to money. They do, however, want to know how much you want them to give. So you do want to be specific about that, because this takes the burden off of them to figure out what size of gift is necessary. They don't know anything about your campaign or your project goals. You do. So help them out. Don't make them do the work. Avoid, will you support our organization this year? It's too vague. The donor wants to know what's needed to do the job. What's your entire project going to cost? Then they can figure out where they fit within the scope of the impact that you're wanting to make. Use the word consider. It's a great word. It helps askers feel comfortable. It feels respectful, and it gives the person being asked some breathing space to think about it. Honesty is always very disarming. Rockefeller is quoted as saying, "I've no right to presume what another person can give or is thinking of giving. I do know what's needed. We need $100,000. If you could consider this, we would be most grateful." Of course, if you were thinking of more, we'd be most grateful for that too. If you've done your research, you should be in the ballpark. Donors are usually flattered to be thought of as generous leaders. If you're too high, they'll tell you. If you're too low, they won't, and they'll generally give you what you asked for. But they'll feel bad about it, and you'll have left money on the table. I once participated in a solicitation where we asked for and got $10,000. However, as soon as the ask was out, it was apparent that the prospect became a bit disengaged, and we later found out he'd been expecting a $100,000 ask and was disappointed that we didn't consider him to be what he considered a leader. So once you ask for your specific amount, what do you do now? You stay silent. It's your secret weapon. And I read once that at least Americans cannot stand the silence of more than 17 seconds. They feel after that they have to jump in and say something. So I count silently to myself 1,001, 1,002, 1,003, and I wait for them to answer. You know, we think that we have to jump in and be great salespeople, make this pitch, but not really. If you focus on the donor, if you draw them out, if you learn what they care about, they're selling themselves. And introverts can really have an advantage. And let me give you an example. So the fundraiser says, what's the most important thing about this project to you? And the donor says, well, I think, lack of music in the schools is really terrible. I think these polluted rivers are just very distressing. I think income inequality is a big problem. We're hurting the next generation. Okay, the bad fundraiser jumps in and says, yeah, you're so right. That's why our program X is so important. Let me tell you more about it, blah, 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 blah. And that's what the donor hears is blah, 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 blah. Because you interrupted their passionate thinking. The superhero fundraiser says, oh, how interesting. Tell me more about that. And then shuts up and looks genuinely interested. The donor then feeling like they should talk because of the silence says, yeah, it really worries me. In fact, the other day I was thinking about when I was a kid, and we used to be able to swim in that river. But now you can't even drink the water, and it's really sad, and I'm really worried about it. Wow. Now you have some material to work with. You know exactly the right program to talk about, all because you shut up. You're fundraising now for this guy's happiness and the future of his kids and grandkids, not your program. So what if you stay silent, but you don't get the answer that you hope for? Persist. Stay focused on your goals. Don't give up on them too soon. Persistence is second only to passion as the key to your success. And you want to know going in what success will look like for you as well as for your donor. But consider what happens if you get less than you ask for. If your kid comes home from school with the grade of F, I'm guessing you won't be telling them how proud you are. Yet too often we'll walk out of a donor solicitation and pat ourselves on the back for having elicited a $25,000 pledge when we asked for $50,000. That's a 50%. That's an F. And so if you have decided that you're going to ask your board president, for example, for a certain gift so that then the board president can passionately go forward and ask other board members for similar stretch gifts, and the board member gives you only 50% of what you asked for, that's going to cause a contagious disease of no-ness from everybody. So I know this might sound harsh because we're trained to be grateful no matter what, but the one phrase that I hear solicitors utter that makes me wince is any amount you can give will be helpful, because that's just plain not true most of the time. You may not be able to run your program. So let's look at what a no might mean and how you can work with your prospect's non-yes answer to build your relationship and ultimately get to your goal. So no doesn't mean I hate you or I hate your organization or I've considered every element of your proposal and understand it as well as you do. It can mean any of the things that you see here up on the screen. It's usually a not yet. So your job is to acknowledge that you heard and understand their hesitation, that you know you asked for a significant gift, and then you want to proceed to determine the reason for their hesitancy. Because if you don't know what the resistance is about, you don't know how to help them overcome it. No is an opportunity. And I know that sounds crazy because you'd rather get a yes, but you can learn a lot and still build a relationship that ultimately leads to a yes. And here's what you can say to gently and tactfully turn no to on, or at least on the way. You don't argue, but you ask 4 questions. Say something like, I hear you're not interested right now. Would you mind helping me out and sharing why? Is it the organization? That could be a deal breaker, but I've seldom found it to be the organization. Usually they don't know enough about the organization. Is it the project? Sometimes you can find a better one that interests them more. Is it the amount? If they're thinking it's a little high, sometimes you can help them by saying, with the tax deduction, it's only going to be this much. Or maybe we could do an installment plan. Would you be comfortable with that? Or maybe you find a different amount that they are comfortable with. Is it the timing? This is the easiest one to deal with. Maybe they're completing a 3-year commitment to another campaign. Make a note so you can come back next year. Tell them that you'll do this, and then this gives you a great lead-in to do that. And make sure you note this in your database so that you follow through. You can say, boy, that's disappointing. I really want to do a good job for our organization. Is there anything we could do better so you might be interested? Ultimately, reluctance is a fact-finding opportunity. If you hear the same thing over and over again, it might be time to make some major changes in your organization. When you hear yes, you leave richer. When you hear no, you leave smarter. Either way, you win. Just make sure you do put a follow-up plan in place so once you know what no means for this prospect, you can get back to them. Now, what do you do when you don't get no exactly, but you get excuses, objections? These may be a way that your prospect masks concerns for help and more information. So you might hear them say something like, my portfolio is really down this year. I have 2 kids in college I'm supporting right now. I'm needing to help an aging parent. This year I'm just giving all my extra money to anti-hate groups. Or, I've just responded to earthquake emergency. A gift to you at the desired level is not going to be met until you've addressed every concern. So you want to remain poised and understanding, interested, confident, and positive. And I like using feel, felt, and found. I know how you feel. It lets them know you heard what they said. In fact, I felt similarly myself. You try to come up with something in your life that's similar to show empathy. And this is how I found to deal with it. It gives them another way to frame the situation. And you have to practice this. Practice it on your family. You have to get used to listening for opportunities to empathize and then reframe. So imagine that your kid gets up one day and says, I don't want to go to school today. I'm too tired. And you say, I hear you. I know how you feel. I've often felt that way too. But what I've found is that once you get up and out the door, you start to feel better. And you actually might have a really great day at school rather than staying home and feeling grumpy all day. Give it a try. So one example in fundraising might be the donor says, my friend had a really bad experience with one of your programs. And then you say, I'm sorry to hear that. I feel your pain. I felt the same way with another organization. Tell them about it a little. And so would you tell me more about your experience? I'd really like to be able to pass this along so we might learn from this and hopefully fix the problem. And then make sure you relay the complaint and then get back with what you've found and tell them, here's what I found. Often you can fix the problem. Whatever happens, you want to close by getting a commitment for something. If you don't get a gift this time, fear not. All is not lost. Express gratitude for their time, and afterward, send them a handwritten note thanking them. Promise to get back to them to address any concerns that came up. Try to get a date to come back with answers. And afterwards, call when you said you would. Or if you don't get a date for anything, call anyway in a couple of weeks to check in and ask for their advice. Remember, people love that. Get them involved with you in another way for right now. Invite them to join a focus group or join an advisory panel or join a committee. Get them on your team doing something with you other than making a financial gift. The long-term relationship is more important than the size of the gift in 1 year. When you restart the cultivation process at this point, eventually you'll be able to make another ask. But in the end, successful major gift development is about lots more than asking. I'll quote Hank Rosso, who's founder of the Fundraising School and one of my personal mentors. He said, fundraising isn't a simple process of begging. It's a process of transferring the importance of the project to the donor. And here's why this is important. If you're a successful nonprofit, then if you cease to exist, you're going to leave people in the lurch. And if you, as the asker, don't believe this, you're not ready to ask. If you do believe it, it would be irresponsible not to ask. Asking for money is intimidating, but it's also an immense privilege. And if your nonprofit is effective, you've earned this privilege because folks rely on you. So you need to come at Major Gift Fundraising from a place of being sincerely interested in helping your donor do something that's going to bring them joy. You're inviting other people to take action on a cause they care about. And it's a privilege to be a philanthropy facilitator because you're selling significance. And at the end of the day, most people don't mind feeling like they're making an outsized impact on the world. You just have to ask them to. So we've come to the end, and I would like to thank you all for doing this important work. I want to encourage you to subscribe to Clarification. You'll get a couple of free e-guides right away. You'll also get access to all of my articles and a lot of discounts. And I do have a Major Gift Strategies e-course coming up. I give it only once a year. It's my most popular course, and registration closes on the 20th. So I wanted to let you know about that. And I don't know, I think we might have time for a couple of questions.
We do have a bunch of questions. We'll probably be able to get to one or two. If you've asked a question and we don't get to it, don't worry. We will make sure we get you an answer. The first question that we got is from Susan, and she asked, what is your advice to nonprofits with fundraising budgets under $200,000?
Well, I think, you can still do a lot with volunteers. So you still want to go through this process. I mean, it's really actually major gift fundraising is the most cost-effective type of fundraising because the gifts you get are significant compared with the work that you put into it. So I'm not really sure where, what you're asking about the budget, but usually it means we don't have money to pay a staff person to do this work. Then you need to try to enlist board members. I will say that investing in major gift fundraising makes a ton of sense because usually you're going to more than make back your investment within, an 18-month period or so if you're starting from scratch. And if you already have a program in place, it's really quick. Like if you buy a training that's $1,000 or $2,000, you're going to make back that investment right away by just one more major gift or one increased major gift. So you've probably heard people say you need to spend money to make money, and it's really true in fundraising.
I think that is a really valuable input, and it kind of ties in with another question that we got from Robert. Robert asked this question when we were talking about a major gift fundraiser being personally invested in the program that they are supporting so they can come to their potential donors on a more even playing field. And Robert asked, does the passionate gift that you referenced in that section need to be money? Does it need to be financial support? Or can it be other things like working contributions? And he gave the example of board members making solicitations who are doing volunteering in the field.
Okay, that's a really great question. And actually, it should be a passionate financial gift. Now, when I say passionate, I don't mean it has to be a peer gift. I can make a $200 gift if that is really significant for me because I don't have very much money at all. It might be the same, $200 for me as $10,000 for somebody else. But it should be something. And it's very dangerous for your major gift fundraising to have board members say, well, I give my time, I don't need to give my money. Because you can't run your programs with just time. You can't, give people food. You can't give people shelter. You can't, do the advocacy work you want to do. Or whatever your mission is, you need money to do it. And everybody can afford something. And that's the point, is that you really want people to give financial support as well as their time.
That is pretty huge. The time especially, one thing that I know we have talked about some of our clients is time is money, and I think it's a valuable contribution regardless.
Of course it's a valuable contribution, but time is not money.
Definitely.
You can't go to the grocery store and say, let me give you my time in exchange for this batch of broccoli. They won't take it.
Right, of course. That's true. We just hit 3 o'clock. So I wanted to give everybody a heads up. If we didn't get to your question, we will get you an answer. I have all of them flagged and set aside, so we will be able to revisit those. I also wanted to give everyone a heads up that we did record this webinar, and you will get the recording later this afternoon or tomorrow. If you want to learn about Claire, I really do encourage you to visit this website. Claire has an amazing blog. She's got tons of great information, and I don't need to tell you how wise and experienced she is in the industry. If you have any questions about QGIve and why we have webinars like this, please let us know. My name's Abby. You can get a hold of me by the phone. You can tweet at us. You can talk to us in a number of different ways online. I want to thank Claire again for coming and sharing so much information with us. I hope that you all are able to tune in for our next webinar, which is on the 30th. A woman named Kiwi LaRue Miller is going to be talking to us about nonprofit communication. She, like Claire, has tons of experience in the industry and has some really valuable knowledge to share with us. You will get this recording soon, so please keep an eye on your inbox. You'll also get an invitation to the next webinar. And like I said, please subscribe to Claire's newsletter and blog if you're able to, and if you can, I would really encourage everyone to sign up for her course on major gifts fundraising. With that, I thank you all for coming. We are going to sign off, and we will be in touch with you very shortly.